Seeing no hands, can I get somebody to make a motion to adopt the minutes? Deputy Gisborne, Director McCormick, all in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries. Again, minutes for the April 3rd. City board meeting. Any errors or mistakes? Again, seeing none, motion to adopt, Director Elliott and Director McCormick, thank you. All in favor? Any opposed? Nobody's opposed them, so motion carries. Reports 4.1, qathet Regional District 2023 audited financial statements. We have a presentation from Corey Vanderhorst again. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hello again, everybody. I'll get my presentation going here. That'll be helpful if we can all be looking at the same thing. There we go. So thank you for inviting me to present to you today. I do have a few slides to go through, just talk about your financial statements for 2023 and our audit that is all wrapped up. Before I dive into the slides, a big thank you to Linda and Lind and the finance team and throughout the staff throughout the regional district for going through the audit process. We really appreciate them making themselves available for questions, providing information. It is a process, and they do a great job of supporting on it. There we go. So going to start here. So you've got your 2023 financial statements for qathet Regional District in your reading package there. I'll talk at a really high level, starting with the statement of financial position, which is a snapshot of the accounts at the end of 2023. You can see the regional district was holding cash and investments of just over $24.7 million. If you add the cash investments and the receivables, you get the total financial asset balance of $59.1 million. The regional district's own debt is $13.3 million. So you can see there just over $10 million of new debt incurred during the year. Total liabilities then of $58.8 million. If you subtract that 58.8 from the $59 million of total financial assets, you get what we call the net financial asset position, which is $303,220. So still in a positive position, not in a net debt position at the end of 2023. Tangible capital assets being managed by the regional district, your infrastructure, so that's water, sewer, buildings, other vehicles and equipment, is on the books at $39.3 million, and the accumulated surplus at the end of the year of $40 million. And I'll show you what's in that $40 million in a future slide. On the operating statement or the income statement, you can see for 2023 total revenues of $19 million, up from the prior year's 14.5 and very close to the budgeted anticipated 19.9. Total expenses for the year of 12.7, so coming in under the budgeted $14.3 million. And at the end of the year, an accounting surplus of $6.3 million. It's important to say accounting surplus because there's lots of adjustments for deferred revenues and other accruals in there. So I like to, look just at the main bank accounts and what happened in the main bank accounts. So regular operations at the regional district is a net cash inflow of $8.3 million. There's $14 million of capital spending throughout the year, $10 million of new debt that I mentioned earlier, 10.5, net of your payments on existing debt. So at the end of the year, the main bank accounts had a net cash inflow of $4.8 million. The $40 million of accumulated surplus, most of that is what we call the invested intangible capital assets. So that's the value of the assets minus the associated debt. There's $600,000 set aside in the waste management reserve, 7.4 set aside for future expenditures in reserves. There are statutory reserve funds of $6.4 million, and then the function balances have $7.4 million of balance in them. New for 2023, important to note that there was an accounting standard change. You're reporting asset retirement obligations now. The total estimate for the end of 2023 was $1.5 million. So that includes $1.3 million of asbestos and other hazardous materials and buildings that would eventually need to be cleaned up. Plus, there's also $200,000 of landfill post-closure costs. So on the The landfill's already closed. That's just the monitoring over the next period of time that has to happen. So this is a new liability being recorded in 2023. Those numbers may change in the future. If there are changes in regulations, there may be new liabilities to record based on the assets that and the infrastructure that you're managing. There might be changes in cost estimates for some of the remediation. You know, we're using the best estimates today for what it would cost to remediate a building or to do any other type of closure activity. And inflation and interest rates will also have an impact on some of the liability amounts. So just be prepared that number might move in future years, but it's currently a $1.5 million liability. We are happy to be providing an unqualified audit opinion or an unmodified opinion. So that is auditor language for a clean audit opinion. We're satisfied the financial statements are prepared in all material respects in accordance with public sector accounting standards. Ready to sign the report. The last step, there's actually two last steps. One is board approval, and two is we always do a check with your legal counsel, make sure there's no hidden liabilities. So we sent out that request this morning. We should get an answer back soon on whether there's any updates or any new items there. When we go through our audit process, we start by looking at the controls in place to ensure that they're designed properly, that they're safeguarding risks, safeguarding the cash and assets that you're managing. We sample transactions throughout the year to form our audit opinion. We don't look at every transaction. And again, a big thank you to management and staff at the regional district for going through the audit process with us. The materiality number that is important in the context of our audit, we used $800,000, so that's calculated as a percentage of your annual revenues. What that number means is that we are looking at every transaction above that amount. So that's usually big capital projects, tax requisition, debt, things like that. And then below that $800,000 mark, we're sampling to get ourselves comfort that the financial statements are accurately reported. There's no limitations placed on the performance of our audit. We had access to all the people we wanted to talk to and documents we wanted to see. We didn't find anything unusual to bring to the board's attention today. So that's a good news item there. And I will also confirm that MMP is independent of qathet Regional District. We didn't do any other projects or any other work that would impair our ability to give you an independent audit opinion from January 1st, 2023, all the way up to today. And I'll wrap up going back into the numbers. So we looked at 2023 and a snapshot of the balances at the end of the year and what happened throughout 2023. We like to end looking at a few ratios that look at the last 4 or 5 years and say, what are some of these ratios doing? What kind of trends might you be seeing in your finances? So we start with this sustainability ratio, which is your financial assets, cash and receivables, and compare it to your liabilities and the amounts that you have due. When this balance is above 1, it means you have some future funding available to pay. You have some funding available to pay for future operations. If it dips below 1, that means you are taxing or generating revenues in the future to pay for past transactions. So it's currently at 1.01. You saw that the net financial asset balance is about $300,000, and the prior is about 1.2. The biggest reason for that decrease is the new debt for the capital project. So that's always going to skew this ratio, but you're still in a positive position, so have a bit of funds available for put aside for the future. The last ratio we look at, we call it the flexibility ratio, but really it's an inflexibility ratio. It's looking at your infrastructure and rough aging of the capital assets that you're managing and seeing, are you staying on top of capital works and replacement and of key pieces that need to get repaired or replaced. So the carrying value of your capital assets, that's the depreciated value when you compare it to the original cost when it was purchased, is remained steady at about 78%. So as we saw with some big capital spending in 2023, you're holding the line on that depreciated value, which tells me that you've got that asset replacement happening and the aging isn't getting, or the assets aren't getting significantly older. Now that doesn't take into account condition assessments. It doesn't take into account that a large capital project in one area, such as wastewater or solid waste, other areas may be aging faster, the water systems or other buildings and things. But it just means on the whole, you're staying steady at that 78%. I'll pause there. I would be happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Vanderhorst. I appreciate that. And I just want to express my appreciation for the staff and particularly the financial staff to, they were such good assistance to you and that they keep us in line getting passing grade with the audit every year. Do we have any other questions around the table? Director Elliott.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for this wonderful report. I had a curiosity about the accumulated surplus function balances. There's a really big difference in that. What could you tell us what that's about a little bit?
Yes, thank you, Director. And I think there we go. Yeah, so every year you're going to be putting funds aside in reserves. Some of them ones that have the statutory reserves have various bylaws and legislation behind them. Other ones, you're earmarking amounts. What's happened primarily in those function balances is a couple things. One, the Growing Communities Fund that the province provided in the spring of 2023 didn't have to go into a specific reserve. So some of that will be in the function balances. The other item is the large increase in investment income and interest income through the year would also be replenishing those function balances. So that's sort of two main things going in there. That's not the whole picture. I would defer to staff if they have any other comments on the increase in the function balance line.
We have any other questions? Mr. Vanderhorst?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Vanderhorst. Always clear.
Okay. Director Powell, may I interrupt you for a second? I understand Ms. Greenham was going to add something.
Oh, yes. Yep, that would be good.
Thank you, Chair. I was just going to say I don't have any other comments at this time on the function balances.
Okay. All right. Director Powell.
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Vanderhorst. Very, very clear. I just had a question about there's a table called higher risk areas and responses. And my understanding of the table is that you had some questions about things that, stood out or something. And then the responses were satisfactory, but I just want to hear you say that, but or something else. But could you explain that table to us? Because that seems to be something that we should pay attention to.
Absolutely. Thank you, Director Powell. Yeah, and this is one of the new things that we started doing last year with one of the changes in the audit standings. Apologies. Oh, I've got the hospital. I should get the right document up. So what this document or what this part of the audit findings report is telling you is what we thought from the audit perspective are key areas, and so we focus in on, right? So we're looking at 4 areas: capital assets, the infrastructure, the asset retirement obligation because it's new, government transfers, so federal and provincial government funding, and then what we call the risk of management override. So could somebody do a journal entry and hide, a theft or a fraud or something like that? So those 4 areas are pretty consistent with how we tackle most regional districts and municipalities, that those are what we would view as higher risk areas. I mean, tangible capital assets and government transfers are often very big dollars, very big with projects and things going on there. So the table outlines the testing that we did in response to those risks, and also should be noted that we are satisfied with what we saw in those 4 areas throughout our audit process.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Director.
Great. Any other questions? Director Gisborne.
Yeah, I was very interested by the financial analysis around sustainability and the financial assets to liabilities ratio. So this is the 2023 going from 1.2 down to 1.01. So it's interesting where it's like above 1, it's 1, below 1, it's a different, but 1.01 is like we're right on the razor's edge.
Mm-hmm.
And we are doing significant tax increases this year, so that should hopefully bring us back up above 1 a little bit higher. So I'm seeing nods. That's good. I guess one of my questions out of staff is because regional district services are siloed. That financial assets to liabilities, I'm just kind of curious, like how would that compare within each of our individual services? Because I presume like some would be higher than 1, some would be lower than 1. But I think we as an organization would try and like to keep them all a bit higher than 1. So I guess that's a question for Linda Green and or for our CAO. I know that's a tough, hole to thread your needle through, but.
Would either of you want to tackle that?
Yeah, and where's the target that we're aiming for? Like 1.5, 1.2, like.
Yeah, Ms. Greenan?
Thank you, Chair. Through the chair, yes. So when we look at when we're purchasing new assets and providing for our operations, we're always trying to make sure that we set funds aside to replace our assets, that we're not borrowing everything or borrowing all the time for assets. So I think that's kind of what we try to do with each service. And the nice thing about the way that regional districts are siloed is you do have to provide assurance that you can pay your debt payments within each service. So that is the goal, is to keep funding our new purchases with funds that we have rather than borrowing.
Okay, thank you very much. Seeing no other hands, thank you, Mr. Vanderhorst, for being here today. Appreciate the presentation. Have a good day. Okay, moving on. Delegation and inquiries. Are there any unregistered delegations? I know we have no registered delegations.
We're here from Malaspina, and basically we'd like to get a moment of Director Brander's time and Director Gisborne's time to discuss recent events that have happened at Malaspina and see if we can come to a better conclusion. And
well, this isn't the right opportunity for us to.
we can't get a hold of you any other way. So either track you down at home or.
And we're very time sensitive.
Right now is not the time to do it. Yes, Director Gisborne.
Yeah, I'd hate to turn away a delegation, but
It's not a delegation.
We're not a delegation, we're individual members.
Yeah, I think if we do want to hear from them, that we should actually go in camera.
But they say they're not a delegation, so I mean, they're not talking to the entire board.
Well, would you like to talk to the entire board?
Well, I don't think it's necessary at this point. There is issues that need to be addressed. But for us at a personal level, we've had a termination of one of our long-term.
Hold on. I'm sorry, but we cannot get into discussions about labor relations.
In an open.
In an open meeting.
That's why I'd like to have a meeting with the two of you, because it directly affects your part of the regional district.
Okay, well, it sounded like this isn't the appropriate time to address this. So, yeah, CAO, you have a suggestion?
They can certainly address the board as a whole during a closed session of the meeting.
Fine.
Okay, well, we can do that and raise our concerns.
Okay.
That's the appropriate way, absolutely.
Well, and let me bring up we just read it in committee of the whole. I'll move that the board move in camera and the meeting be closed to the public on the grounds that the subject matter to be considered relates to matters covered by the community charter under section 91C, labor relations or other employee relations, and N, the consideration of whether a committee meeting should be closed under provision of this subsection or subsection 2.
I'm going to turn to the CAO here. I want to make sure we're doing this appropriately.
Yeah, I think if you would have passed that, then we can go in camera at this juncture
Okay,
just to discuss this item.
okay. So that a motion's been made. Do we have a seconder? Director Elliott? Any discussion on this? Seeing none, call the vote. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, none opposed. We're gonna go in camera. So there two here.
Just give us a moment.
So question to our CAO, do we go in camera and then invite the delegation?
That's right.
Right. I'm just trying to make sure all the procedure stuff.
All right, everyone's in.
Okay, we are back from the closed session.
Recording in progress.
And there is no unfinished business. We have one item of correspondence. Do we have any business arising from said item of correspondence?
Chair, just a point of order. I don't know if we passed the motion on the audited statements 4.1.
Oh.
Could we, I think it was moved and seconded, but I think we didn't go to a vote.
That's a good point. We had the presentation, but we didn't move the motion. Okay, so
Yeah, I move that we lift it from the table.
and seconded by McCormick. Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? None opposed, motion carries. Is Director Lennox still with us or?
He seems to be.
Yes, Chair, yeah.
Okay, great. Just wanted to make sure you were there. So no unfinished business correspondence. Yeah, I don't imagine there's any business arising from said correspondence. Up to Chair's report. April 4th, a number of us attended a session with Al Sebring. About tips and suggestions for meeting times and efficiencies. I found it very valuable, and I expect to see his ideas work their way into our meetings. We already saw some changes in today's committee of the whole, so kudos to Director McCormick. Library trustees, library usage is going well. Lots of people in there, lots of materials being used. And I think I mentioned it last month. It's unfortunate there's been some poor behavior and some vandalism and stuff like that, but it's a shame we've got such a great asset there, and it's a shame to see some people use it in such an inappropriate way. April 12th to the 14th, the AVICC in Vancouver. There were a lot of good sessions. Oh, I'm sorry. I have Victoria written down. I said Vancouver. Some not so applicable to us, but the two I thought were really good, or I remember being really good, were the housing session on Friday morning and the keynote speaker, Diane Kalin's Sukra. Topic about civic leaders and then addressing culture risk and fostering social cohesion. She was really good. Reminded us what part civic leaders can play in our society. Not just about making decisions, it's also about building positive message and bringing the community together. I imagine a few of the directors will have comments about sessions that they saw at the AVICC, so I'll leave it there. Earlier this week, the CAO and I met with the Hagoose and the interim CAO of Tuolumne Nation, Russ Brewer, just for a casual conversation about some topics that both governments have interest in. There was a good relationship building session, plans in place to make it a regular thing. The concept of holding the C2C meeting was addressed, but I'm not going to go into that now, as I would prefer to allow Tuolumne Nation to respond to the letter that we sent them and make it public. Earlier today, right prior to the hospital district meeting, I went to a Vancouver Island University Steering Committee meeting. Primarily discussed contacting the public, getting information about what direction that VIU should go to in the future. And tonight, a few directors and I are going to attend a community discussion concerning pickleball, the history of it, the current status, and where people see it going in our region. Tomorrow, I'm covering future things just because they are occurring this month. We are meeting with Ministry of Transportation again about issues of concern in the community. We're all pretty happy to get these fired back up again. They went on hiatus during COVID, and hopefully get a few issues addressed. And then down in my neck of the woods, I just want to point out May 11th from noon till 2 o'clock is the Lang Bay Community Club's annual plant sale. Community members are invited to donate potted plants to this fundraiser. And along with lots of plants, there'll be a 50-50, a raffle, and a concession. So if you have any questions about that, please contact 487-1259 for more details or how to drop plants off. It's a great event. It's a lot of fun. Hopefully the weather is good. So I encourage everybody to attend. Director Elliott, are you ready? Should we go?
Yeah, no, I can go.
Good. All right. Start us off.
Thank you, Chair. Also attended the LC Bring training session, and I always enjoy LC Bring training sessions. I always get a lot out of them. Had questions answered, really enjoyed that. Also attended AVICC from April 12th to the 14th. One of the things I learned while I was there that may impact how we do our business is the deadline for resolutions to UBCM is no longer June 30th. It is now June 15th. So if we want to propose resolutions to UBCM from our regional board, we need to have them at a meeting approved by the board prior to June 15th. And so that's a little bit different. We'd have to put them at our but now that we have 2 board meetings a month, maybe that makes it a little easier too, right?
Yeah.
So that, that was more challenging before that. I attended the first BC Ferry Advisory Committee that we've had in a while because they kind of shut down. BC Ferries wasn't holding meetings for quite a long time. So on April the 18th or 19th, sorry, they had a online MS Teams meeting to talk about their startup again and what they've been doing with themselves for the last little while in the process. So they think they have like a backlog of things that they need to address because of the lack of meeting over the last little while, and some things that had been raised prior to shutting down meetings they wanted to get caught up on. And so they proposed a process for the next 6 to 8 months to try and get caught up on getting input, and they're creating a group of chairs to get together, as well as some a schedule of getting through a process. So they want to have virtual Ferry Advisory Committee meetings in May, in-person and community workshops in June and July, and have community prioritization of the backlog done by fall. And that community prioritization would be done by the priorities committee that has all the chairs on it. So our chair is Kim, and she will sit there for us. And so coming up in May will be our first one. And I will go there. So if anyone has anything they really need me to bring to the attention to get on a list of trying to get prioritized by BC Ferries, you can tell me prior to the May meeting, which they have not set yet, but I'm sure they're going to set that date very soon. So that happened there. And I did attend a housing roundtable on April 8th, where we started looking at our draft terms of reference, like who the membership should be, and we've got some of that sent out. We'll have another meeting coming up, our next meeting, where we'll try to finalize some of that terms of reference for the housing roundtable. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, it's great to hear that the Ferry Advisory Committee is getting back on track again, just like the MODI meetings.
Yeah.
Dr. Gisborne.
Thank you, Chair. I, as well as many other directors, of the LC Bring session for making our meetings go more efficiently. There was a number of things that LC Bring brought up that were, sometimes these are things that we can do collectively, and some of these things are things that we can individually work on. One of the things that was brought up was, the accumulative time talking, rather than, oh, I only speak once or only speak twice, was to say, you speak for a total of, 10 minutes or something like that. So right after that session, I went home on Amazon and ordered a bunch of sand timers of different durations. So I'll be bringing those to future meetings to try and self-regulate. I also attended the AVICC, which was absolutely wonderful and insightful as always. A lot of really good sessions. The housing session I found to be very eye-opening for a number of things, and other things were not overly surprising. During that housing session, there were presenters on behalf of the development community, and I found it very impactful to individuals when they said, different local governments have different levels of development barriers. There's some communities they don't even want to work with. Some communities they've got, higher just base fees just to kind of deal with all their hoops. And I think I overheard one of our directors saying, well, up in Powell River, we was trying to encourage them to come up here. So that was good. One of the sessions though that really stood out was put on by Joe Scaife from Young Anderson around closed sessions, open sessions, forums. And I found that really important, really insightful, especially in relation to C3 meetings that we've been having or trying to have, and the discussions going around the table. It seemed I wasn't alone because there was a lot of municipal councilors from the city of Powell River there and regional directors. And as soon as he finished his presentation, it seemed like everyone from our region just swarmed him with questions. I then have watched a recent city council meeting where this was also brought up a number of times. And it also made me think about how there's a lot of confusion in the community in general around what's a forum, what's an open meeting, and what's a closed meeting. And, that's where we've been getting, I think, some public discourse friction and frustration. So while I was thinking about my director's report, I actually put forward a notice of motion and I sent it to the staff, and this is for an upcoming meeting, but I'll put it forward just up on the screen, perfect. At a future meeting, that the board directs staff to invite Joseph Scaife from Young Anderson to present to the board on the topic of forums, open meetings, and closed meeting requirements, and that the Powell River City Council and Tla'amin Nation Executive Council be invited to attend. And that's a similar kind of motion to the one we have on our agenda today for Ministry of Agriculture, where, we could all kind of get on the same page as to, if we all show up at a forum, but some of us want to get down to business, well, we can't get down to business at a forum. And that way, hopefully, when we do, gather in a forum or a meeting, we kind of get some shared expectations to what's actually going to happen at that venue. So I think that's something for a future meeting, but we can cross that bridge when we get there, because I was thinking, Young Anderson gave a great presentation. They don't represent the city of Powell River, but they do represent us. So it kind of fits within our wheelhouse, I think. And as Director Brander also pointed out, we've got the upcoming Ministry of Transportation meeting tomorrow, which I'm very excited to attend, because those have been sorely missed with a number of the transportation issues. And other than that, it has been the month of April, which means I have been extremely busy on the farm, getting all the planting I can. And I look forward to hopefully making it out to the plant sale. I know when my father was alive, he very much enjoyed his trips out to the Langbay Hall to get some plants for his garden, and of course bossing everyone around to tell them where to plant them. That's it from me.
Okay, great. I was also pleased that they had the developers in attendance at that housing session, because so often we hear about the government side of things. We don't hear from the developer side what frustrations they run into. So it was neat to hear that. I'll go up to the TV there. Paul.
Hi, Chair. So at the end of I spoke last month about this very open session that our MLA Adam Walker held, and he put together a what we heard report, 26 pages, and it's very nice looking. And he provided that to the ferry committee and to myself. And if anyone's interested, let me know if you'd like to see it. But it was a very nice way of assembling the extensive debate the questions and issues that came up, and he had a few recommendations in there. So that was very nice. On April the 7th, there was a community emergency evacuation workshop, QRD held workshop at our community hall, organized by our emergency services and Jesse McDonald. I wasn't able to attend, but the people who did go said it was very good, very informative, and it gave an opportunity to follow up on the one that was held, I believe, last year that I did attend. So it gave information on evacuation, emergency planning, plus the emergency supplies container that's at the hall, so people have a good understanding of it, what's in there, what else might be put in there. So that was really good. On April the 9th, there was the meeting of the Lasqueti Island Solid Waste Plan Monitoring and Advisory Committee, the nicely worded acronym of LISMPMAC, which just rolls off the tongue. So that was a good meeting to introduce the committee to Jason Cohenhoven, who's the new, staff representative or lead on that, or contact. So that was a really good discussion with both the committee, with Jenny Vester, who writes the articles formerly with Let's Talk Trash, but now she has her own, I think she calls it the waste case, articles on reductions of waste, which is really good, and our depot manager. So that was a really good session, and everyone's very happy to have that connection with Mr. Cohenhoven. The AVICC, of course, like everyone else, and I didn't go to the closed meeting session or the open closed session. I went to the session on wildfire resiliency in communities because that was concurrent and seemed relevant for Lasqueti, and it had really good representatives from BC Wildfire Service as well as the Capital Regional District and Dashwood Volunteer Fire Department. And the representative from Dashwood was actually someone who grew up on Lasqueti Island. Her mother still lives there, and she gives training sessions for our department. So it was really good to see. It was a really good session on what people can do. And one thing that really stood out was that QRD is really ahead of the game. We have, there was a kind of a call out for the Fire Smart, our coastal adapted Fire Smart brochure and guidelines that Mark Albert has developed and others. And, we get used to what we're doing and we think it's just normal, but actually there are other communities who haven't, they don't have a Fire Smart program, or it's just kind of provincial connections and they don't know about these. So I think our coastal adapted Fire Smart program guidelines can really help others. And I think also just the fact that we have an ongoing program that's regularly held and, we support it every year, at least so far. And that was really, I think, stood out as QRD being at the leading edge here a bit on this. Plus, community wildfire resiliency plans, which we've got grants, and it'll be under, there'll be a development of that this year, which would be great. On the day I got back from AVICC, Paul Cumming from Townsite Jazz held the last concert for the Townsite Jazz Festival on Lasqueti. So he traveled to Lasqueti with to hold a very nice jazz concert at the community hall. It was opened with a student band from Brooks Secondary High School. So he's a teacher there, and there were 4 students, or one of them's graduated, came down and they played an amazing set of jazz while people came in, and also about an hour after people sat down. So it was really nice for them to have an opening. Then there was this Ken Lister trio. Ken Lister's a Juno award-winning bass player, and there was drum and guitar, and it was just amazing. People were astounded. The hall was fairly full. It was about 80 plus people, and there was a lot of logistics. It's very much appreciated. Bringing Ken Lister has a full-size stand-up bass, so to bring a drums kit and stand-up bass and all this equipment on the ferry. One of them was from Bowen Island, one from Powell River, the students and the teacher, and Paul Cumming from Powell River. So a lot of logistics, putting up people in houses, feeding them and moving them around. I think they had fun, and the community really loved it. So it was a really great connection, and I think it was very much appreciated. And then on last weekend, this ongoing, there's a person on the island who's been holding community forums, and this time was on wildfire. It wasn't really well attended, or really, there weren't a lot of people, but there was our emergency coordinator, Darcy Pascal. There were 2 of the Fire Smart trainer or people on the island were there, and a few other people, and we had a very good discussion about all scales of how our island can deal with building resiliency to wildfire. So from the individual house level, which is with Fire Smart, up to the community wildfire resiliency planning and the kind of mapping that we're going to be getting out of that, and kind of understanding how neighborhoods can work, and discussing what the community can do. And a lot of it's about being engaged and informed, and taking advantage of what's there. That's, I think, all I have to report on right now. Thank you, Chair.
Great, thanks, Director. I was glad you were able to make it back for the event, the Jazz Fest event, and boy, Paul's really set the bar high now for all the other events that we support. Because you have to get under Arthur Arnold, have him do a little bit of classical music over there now.
Yeah, we're waiting for an orchestra to come.
Yeah, Director Elliott.
I just wanted to ask Andrew Fall if that report around the ferry stuff could be sent to me so I could be informed in my role on the Ferry Advisory Committee. I just thought it might be helpful.
Happy to.
Okay, great. Director Lennox.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I agree. Paul's doing some great work out there in the community and spreading the wealth of a lot of that musical talent. All you have to do for Mr. Arnold is to challenge him, and he'll probably step up to do something. So another busy month. I start jotting things down and realize it's always busy. Lots of communication from folks. I was unable to attend the LC Bring session with the other directors, but I did have a good chat with them privately, and look forward to some of the stuff coming from that.
A few things that have come out in the community I think are interesting for folks. The Association of the Savory Island Committee newsletter. They have a new website. All you got to do is Google savoryisland.ca and you'll find it. Lots of great information about Savory there and a lot of the most current info. Coming up here in May's coming up quick, May 24th, 5th, and 6th. So on the 24th, the Chowder Fest is happening at the fire hall out here. So you want to make a note of that, everybody. There's limited space for folks to be sampling some of those awesome chowders. So, and then the next couple of days, there'll be events in Lund. The Lund Community Society has just issued their latest issue of the Barnacle. That's their newsletter and on their website as well, and all that information is within there. QRD, we've got some good info in there for folks, and I did a little blurb in there as well for the community. Again, people getting a hold of me around safety concerns on the highway. We've got ongoing kind of construction zone going for most of the highway north, and people are really concerned about what the status is. They're not really sure. Make it, really voicing those concerns around their safety for their kids and bicycles and all that stuff. So it's really great that we're having this meeting with MOTI and establishing that communication path. So looking forward to that tomorrow. Lots of logging trucks coming from north. And April 28th, that's like literally coming up here this weekend, we have our own evacuation workshop at the Northside Community Recreation Center. I went to the last session. It was great. And Jesse's great at delivering that. And we're looking forward to, as Director Fall said, the next steps about starting to pack those units full of supplies that we never, hope to never have to use, but will be a little bit more resilient. So, and then finally, AVICC, great to go to my second one. I'm getting my feet under me a little bit. I did enjoy the housing sessions. I also really like the electoral area forums. That's getting together with the other directors from electoral areas. The Truth and Reconciliation calls to action, I think, is always good to be focused on, and what that means as we move down that path. A lot of great discussion, I think, about respect, really, and how people treat each other, both internally in government and also with the public, and some good training on that, how to be a bit resilient. I was interested in the Island Corridor Foundation update. There's some stuff you just don't hear about until you get to go to some of these things. But what really turned my crank was the youth representative that was there, and from Gibson's, I believe. Is that right? Coming out of the high school there, and really restored my faith in youth. Got to sit at the table with this young man, and he represented his community very well. And also, when he got up to speak, he looked very nervous. I would be too, in front of that many people. And man, he laid it down about our responsibility for youth and looking ahead. So I just thought that was super cool and solidified why we're doing what we're doing. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. He did a great job. He was up there speaking, and he was fantastic. Quick question. Don't know if you know the answer, but where do you get tickets for the Chowder Fest? Any idea?
Yeah, I know that there's a link there. Check out the Lund Community Society, the Barnacle. Just Google the Barnacle. You'll find it there. I don't have it in front of me here, sorry, but
okay,
I'm
at least
sure
you give us some direction.
Yeah, sorry, and you can email me for the link. Thanks.
Okay, Director McCormick.
Thank you, Chair. Like many of you, I attended the LC Bring session, so I won't belabor that. Though it was very interesting, I learned a lot. On the 10th of April, I attended virtually a meeting of the Community Energy Association, and the topic was local government climate action plan funding. So it was interesting to learn more about that. Between the 12th and 14th, like all of you, I attended AVICC. And looking back on the conference overall, I have to say that the key issues in my mind were downloading and housing, followed by transportation, reconciliation, health issues, and public safety, infrastructure, and climate change. But the downloading part really struck me as I heard that over and over again, particularly in the resolutions. One highlight was Lisa Help's presentation during the housing session. And she, the former mayor of Victoria, she's now in charge of an agency called BC Builds with the mandate to build housing fast. And she explained how she brings local governments with underutilized space together with developers, financial people, and nonprofit societies. And I asked a question, well, does this apply to rural areas as well as municipalities? And she said it would, if as long as the site meets CMHC mortgage qualifications. So that was interesting. The developers at that same session said an interesting thing that stuck in my head, and that is that red tape and regulations translate to time and money. And areas with fewer regulations, less red tape, have an advantage when it comes to attracting developers. And I thought, that's something that we really, have to offer the development community. So I thought that was interesting. Another moment that stood out was at the electoral area forum, where we were all given colored dots and were expected to put them on various topics around the room. The one topic that all the stickers were red, which means we're not happy with this. The one that got all red stickers was the one on roads and road infrastructure. What a surprise. So I thought it was also interesting a bit later in the conference when Rob Fleming got up to speak, and there was a lot of, kind of pre-election kind of talk, but nothing at all about roads. So, or ferries. I guess the most memorable moment of the conference for me was when the leader of the Green Party, Sonia Firstino, stood up, and she talked about the little whale that everybody is cheering for and rooting for around the whole world, and she equated the whale to marginalized people who are lost in a sea without their, support structure, etc. And yet the compassion we feel for the whale doesn't translate into compassion for marginalized people. So it was very touching the way she said it. So that really was I guess, the most memorable moment for me. On the 19th of April, the Texada Airport Advisory Committee met. Arnold Schwab and Patricia Wilkinson were there from staff. And I want to particularly commend Patricia, who is retiring in the very near future. This was going to be her last Airport Advisory Committee. So I'd just like to say thank you to Patricia for her work and her dedication on the committee's behalf. So the committee agreed that they would like to see the hangar, draft hangar agreement, go to the leaseholders for a discussion. And Mr. Schwab indicated there was plenty of time to do that since it was too late to get on the agenda for this month's committee of the whole in any case. So that was the Airport Advisory Committee. On the 20th of April, I attended an event called Soup for the Soul. And you will notice this lovely bowl that I have here, crafted by members of the BC or the Texada Ceramics and Sculpture Studio. They have an annual fundraising event called Soup for the Soul. You buy a bowl and then you get a cup, it's a disposable cup that sits in there that is most healthy, hearty, a whole variety of different soups that you can get. So there was music and it was very well attended and a lot of fun. So thank you to Texada Sculptures for coming up with this great fundraising and idea. The same day on the 20th, I also attended a presentation by our own Mark Albert, our Fire Smart coordinator, who was talking as part of the library speaker series about, about factors that influence wildfires and ways to be more resilient as homeowners and property owners. So most interesting. On the 23rd, I'm almost at the end, was a board meeting that was yesterday of Tourism Powell River. And work is proceeding on the welcome pole, which will be, outside the front of their visitor center. The staff training in emergency services is ongoing. And I learned one other thing about the Blackberry Festival. I'm not sure if it was going to go ahead, but apparently it will, as a partnership between the Chamber of Commerce and Powell River Rotary. So I thought that was good news to share with everybody. Tomorrow, I'm going to the same MOTI meeting as a number of you, so we'll see how that transpires. And my final comment is to, believe it or not, I'm saying these words, commend BC Ferries and thank BC Ferries for the service that was provided to the residents of Texada Island when the ferry shut down last week. It was out of service for 2 days. And during that time, they had arranged water taxis that went back and forth to make sure that everybody got to where they needed to be. I thank them for allowing the Salish Orca to come and stop at Blubber Bay so that at least we had some way of getting our vehicles, many of which were full of large grocery shops that people had done and then had to leave behind, so we could get our vehicles home. So I want to thank BC Ferries, and it was, ready a day ahead of schedule. So again, I really appreciate what you did. So thank you. That's my report, Chair.
That's great. I think that, the fact, 5+ years I've been here, that's probably the first time we've given accommodations to BC Ferries for their service. So that's awesome.
But you've been
Just writing it down.
And in BC Ferries don't always belong in the same sentence, but
Paul Galinsky making notes.
I am making a note.
The Paul
Thank you,
Galinsky in the
Chair.
paper.
All right, Director Dowd.
Yeah, how can you beat BC Ferries doing something good?
Oh,
I missed Eli Mina or
Al Sebring.
Al Sebring, same different person, same job. And they're probably very good points on how to make a meeting run quicker. Generally, the secret is talk less and listen more, but we'll see how that goes. And the reason I wasn't there, I was at a municipal insurance agency seminar on all the members of the municipal insurance agency voting delegates got to participate in that in Vancouver. It was 3 days of amazing information-packed meetings. And all of the seminars lasted for about an hour and just one after the other all day long, talking about mostly legal issues for municipalities and regional districts, how to deal with the legal fallout from legal action that happens, how to avoid legal action, what you can insure and what you can't insure. All of this stuff built around that, and it was incredibly informative and useful. It was a really good 3 days there in Vancouver. And even though the Powell River Airport is closed at the time, you take Harbor Air and took you from downtown Powell River to downtown Vancouver, and it worked perfectly. So that was good. And then the most recent weekend was at the AVICC. And then all of the things to get together and talk to other people about housing, about civic leadership and civility and civic leadership was a great part of that, and how to deal with the increasingly antagonistic views that people are hearing more and more. And it's not just in one corner of the world. Seems to be the same thing everywhere. Is the level of antagonism is just going up, and it's getting to the point where a lot of people are deciding not to be part of public service or elected office because of what they have to face up with when they're in there. And actually there's a whole book about it, and some ideas about how to have more civil relationships by trying to change the way we as elected representatives react to what people have to say in communities. So a couple of really good conferences, and the discussion about closed meetings and the legal opinions from the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Young Anderson saying, really, they don't have any up-to-date legal advice on exactly what you can do as a regional district when you're meeting with the First Nation, or city in the regional district meeting with the First Nation. But the advice that I took away from that is go forward with, in a good way, with a good heart and an open mind, and do the best you can. And you're unlikely to go too far wrong in that. But meeting and having a relationship between First Nations and local governments, I think, is very important, and it's worth taking a risk. Finding a way for the public to get behind and appreciate that is another question. And those two very worthwhile conferences that help to re-energize and move things forward. So I enjoyed those, and the next month will be interesting. And the city has passed a couple of motions that are designed to encourage all the three local governments to get together and work together more. We'll see how that works out. Not everybody's happy with that.
Thanks very much. Obviously, you paid attention at the conferences because some of the tips you picked up at the MIA actually proved useful today already. So good on you. All right, director's reports are finished. We now have the consent agenda, and it's opportunity for anybody to pull items from the consent agenda should they see fit. So if not, sorry, Director Gisborne.
11.9.
11.9 will now be 12.
Is that okay, Jason?
Anybody else? No, with no other hands in the air, would somebody like to move the consent agenda? Director Gisborne, Director Elliott. I guess it doesn't require any discussion at this point. So all in favor? Any opposed? Unopposed? Motion carries. So 11.9, no, now 12.1. Right. Oh, sorry. Good idea. Yeah, prior to having a motion, does anybody have any questions that they would like to ask for clarification prior to this? Well, it's 11.9. It is now 12.1. I don't see any hands up. So would somebody like to make a motion?
I will move item number 1.
Okay.
Real simple.
Okay. Director Gisborne, seconded by Director McCormick. Any discussion? Seeing no hands up. All in favor? Any opposed? Unopposed. Motion carries. So moving on to item number 2. Anybody like to move that? I'm seeing no hands up.
Well, I'll move it.
Okay, Director McCormick moves it. Do I have a seconder?
Sure, I'll second.
Okay, seconded by Director Gisborne. Any discussion, Director Gisborne?
Yeah, the reason I pulled 11.9, which is now 12.1, was that the bylaw itself was defeated at the planning committee level. Item number 2 is that the board endorsed the proposed minor amendment to the Crompaka Road zoning bylaw. So since it's highly unlikely that we're actually going to adopt the zoning bylaw, I figured, why not just vote this item down? Because it says, the board endorsed the proposed minor amendment to the Crompaka Road zoning bylaw to revise the definition of agriculture to ensure accurate reference to the current provincial agricultural land reserve use regulation, and that the implement be incorporated into the bylaw prior to third reading and final adoption. Well, I think at this point, third reading and final adoption is incredibly unlikely. So I think it would be appropriate for us to just vote this item down. And then if it's okay with everyone around the table, I would even put forward a motion based on, the kind of discussion that happened in relation to 11.8, which would be that the board repeal first and second reading of the bylaw as well. Because the zoning bylaw, we gave first and second reading, but we have shot down third reading and adoption. So I think just for procedural to put the whole item to bed, I think let's vote down this item, and then I'd put forward a motion that we would repeal first and second reading, and then that would be the end of it.
Okay. Do I have any other hands up at this point? Director Lennox. Oh, sorry.
Just
Director Dell and then Director Lennox.
Just an observation. I should have asked this under questions.
Okay, go ahead.
If I'd been at the seminar, I probably would have had that down. But I see that the The notes on this are the people who can vote on this as directors of area A, B, C, and D.
Mhm.
Is that right?
Yes. It is. And then Director Lennox, you had your hand up, and then Director McCormick.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I guess my question to staff is this even necessary at the point that we're at in the process? We've got the report. To Director Gisborne's question, really, is it necessary in performing this act?
CAO.
Through the chair, it does give us an audit trail, and it does put in place an action that would have to be performed before getting to third and final adoption. That being said, I doubt if we'll update anything, but the manager of planning services can correct me if I'm wrong. But the other thing for consideration is that, and I'm relying on my past experience regarding bylaws. In Alberta, a bylaw in the books becomes null and void if it does not receive third and final reading within 2 years after first reading. I didn't get enough research done to look into the LGA, but I have to believe that there's something similar or equivalent to that, because technically a bylaw that doesn't reach fruition cannot stay on the books forever and ever. Amen. That latter part is my opinion. I could be wrong, but making a page or note out of the Alberta playbook, it eventually does die.
I was
So in BC.
just gonna ask Ms. Rodden if she has anything else to add to that, or.
Through the chair. Yeah, I believe through the chair, I believe that the CAO is correct in that assumption. And there are a number of bylaws that the QRD has that simply sat at first reading or second reading and never went through to adoption. But I cannot quote what section of the Act would allow for that. That being said, I'll also just add, it's really at the preference of the board, whether you want to repeal first and second reading or not. I think I addressed this question at the planning committee that I don't think it's required, because if the bylaw is not going for third reading and adoption, then the bylaw won't be amended. And there's a difference between the other two bylaws that are referred to in the resolution 11.8. Those were associated with a directive to staff to engage with the community. And that's why staff had recommended repealing the bylaws and rescinding the direction.
Thank you. Director McCormick?
Yeah, thank you. And my question also was to ask Ms. Rodden for her input regarding, okay, this is the recommendation that is put before us. Why is this recommendation put forward, and what is the impact then of not? It just means the old bylaw continues. Is that correct?
Well, there is no bylaw. I'll let Ms. Rodden answer.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Through the chair, yes, this Kronbacher Road zoning bylaw is a proposed bylaw that currently sits at second reading.
Okay, thank you. I think I have one question. If we do endorse this and then it just sits on the books dormant essentially until a time when it naturally dies, in that interim period, whether it's 2 years or whatever it might be, if there is a desire by somebody to bring it back up, then it would actually be in the correct position. You wouldn't have to do any more amendments to it. And by endorsing this, it really doesn't change anything, because the third reading is still not going to occur because we didn't pass it at the committee level. So would there be any harm in actually endorsing this? Just in the off chance that somebody actually does want to bring it back later on. That's to Ms. Rodden.
Through the chair. As I said before, in my opinion, think you could go either way. I think there's no harm in it sitting there. It's a minor amendment that just says you want to amend the definition to be in line with the ALR land use regulation. It's just going to sit on the books. The bylaw would just be in abeyance.
Thank you. Director Gisborne?
Thank you, Chair. I actually had a similar kind of question to what the CAO was speaking about in terms of timeline of bylaws. And while I was looking up bylaws completely unrelated to this one, I came across on the British Columbia government's website, and this only talks about third reading, and it says, quote, "There is no maximum limit on the time between third reading and final adoption." I don't know of any difference between second reading and third reading, and that got me thinking. And then when I went through today's agenda, and I saw that our proposed changes for, Area A and Area COCP, and had gone through the planning committee, was that we were voting to rescind, or what's the correct term? Repeal first and second reading. And I thought, why are we repealing first and second reading of one bylaw? And I thought about it and goes, oh, well, that's because, we're making it clear for essentially the audit of saying, look, we're not going that way. It's done. It's put to bed. And to Director Brander's point, if we don't repeal first and second reading, then it is still sitting there until either the timeline expires, whatever that timeline is. So far, my understanding is it could be next term. It could be the term after, who knows? But I think because we had the discussion at the planning committee, let's put it to bed, just like Area A and Area COCP, first and second reading, where we just repeal it. And then that way, if members of the public start getting kind of confused or concerned, going, well, maybe it'll come back again, or it's like, no, if we repeal it, we can just tell the public, okay, it's done. Like, it's not going to reemerge like a zombie bylaw in 2 years or a year and a half,
We're getting off topic here.
So I think it's actually totally fine for us to just vote this item down, because the item before us is doing the minor change to a bylaw, which the planning committee has already kind of, I believe, indicated that we're not going to support. So I don't see the need to get the board to direct staff to amend a bylaw that then we're, ideally would then repeal. So my vote would be no on this item.
Okay, so we've kicked it around. It seems like it's more or less a moot point anyway, so I think we can move on and vote on the motion in front of us. So I'll call the vote. All in favor? Any opposed? Well, sorry, Director Elliott, you don't vote on this one?
Oh, you're right. So sorry.
Okay, the motion fails. Director Gisborne.
I would move that the board repeal first and second reading of the Crompacher Road zoning bylaw.
Do we have a seconder? Okay, Director Lennox, we have a seconder. Any discussion? It's already been discussed quite a bit, but Director Lennox?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Director Gisborne's really quite eloquently explained the kind of point that we're at in the process, and I agree that I want to clear this up. It's already been asked. There's been a little bit of confusion. Well, what does this mean now? And yeah, I had the same question. So to clear it up, I am in support of this motion. Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, move on. No resolutions, no reports. Bylaws 15.1, 2023-2027 financial plan amendment bylaw. The 586.1, 2024. Somebody like to read that for me?
I move that the board give first and second reading of 2023 to 2027 financial plan amendment bylaw number 586.1, 2024.
Seconded by Director McCormick. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Motion carries.
I move that the board give third reading of 2023 to 2027 financial plan amendment bylaw number 586.1, 2024.
Seconded by Director McCormick. Any discussion? All in favor? None opposed. Motion carries.
I move that the board adopts 2023 to 2027 financial plan amendment bylaw number 586.1, 2024.
Seconded by Director McCormick. Any discussion? None, all in favor? Any opposed? Unopposed, motion carries. Thank you very much. No new business, question period.
Thank you, Chair Galinsky from the Peak here. I don't have any questions of this afternoon's meeting.
Okay, thanks very much. And we have a proposed closed session. Go ahead,
I
Director.
move the board move in camera the meeting be closed to the public on the grounds that the subject matter to be considered relates to matters covered by the community charter under section 91. L, discussions with regional district officers and employees respecting regional district objectives, measures, and progress reports for the purposes of preparing an annual report under section 98, annual regional district report. And N, the consideration of whether a board meeting should be closed under provision of this subsection or subsection 2. And C, labor relations or other employee relations.
Okay, seconded by Director Elliott. Any discussion? All in favor? None opposed, motion carries. We're going in.
Recording stopped.
good meeting today.
Thank you.
All right, we're back from the in-camera session.
Recording in progress.
The board would like to rise and report qathet Regional District contracted HUB Fire Engines and Equipment Limited to build and deliver the new fire engine for the Slavery Ireland Fire Protection Service. And that is the end of our agenda, so I declare this meeting adjourned. Thank you very much.
Recording stopped.
Do we
See you, Andrew. See you, Jason.